Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Peacemaker, episodes 1 through 3. So, when I go into spoilers about this show, realize that it's going to be compressed within 3 episodes, so if people are expecting second to second detail for when we get into spoilers, I probably won't get into that route of way of doing about things. Because 3 episodes, kind of to cover all in one fell swoop. Uh, and plus, I really could have gone on and kind of done a certain number of episodes and so on and so forth. But let's just go on and do this kind of all in one shot. How did I feel about Peacemaker? Well, I think the things that were supposed to win me over about this show easily did. Kind of the trailer was to have me just expect that this show is to just kind of not take itself seriously, have a lot of fun and stuff like that. I didn't look too much further into this show. Like seeing Danielle Brooks, who is to kind of be the girl on the far side here, on the farthest side, of course, this girl here. I had known her from Orange is the New Black, so I was really surprised how she was in this cast. Like, oh, she's in this cast. I remember her. Um, uh, yeah, in Orange is the New Black. I thought it was really cool. I'm like, ooh, a character that I actually, or an actor or actress that I actually know, because everybody else is kind of unknowns, which is kind of, it's still interesting. Well, we also have Robert Patrick, who of course is Terminators and one of the Dusk Till Dawn movies, and of course Terminator 2 Judgment Day and so on and so forth. But anyways, but yeah, we have a lot of fun with the DC characters in this show. We have very goofy characters that are to be either called Vigilante or Judo Master in these first 3 episodes. So we have some fun with that. We also actually have certain characters you wouldn't have expected to be on the show. Yeah, maybe very briefly, but still on the show. Uh, Really, my take on the Peacemaker is a lot of people immediately just say that this is just a Deadpool kind of show, which I won't go out of my way to say that. I feel like this approach of this is to feel like one of those late night adult swim shows that you're going on and just going, huh? You're just kind of scratching your head, just going man, this is such an oddballish show, but I can't help but also enjoy it. I can't help but also enjoy that John Cena is doing all of this stuff and really having fun with this character. It feels like this show everyone is just really having fun with, and it feels like the story is really fun. uh I also found myself not only enjoying the show, but I just bizarrely kept hearing a lot of bizarre music that they kept playing in the background during the show. There was so many times where immediately while there was some musical intros in this show, I'm like, what the is this music? I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I was also just man, we have uh, some pop songs that are to go on and be done in a much more rock or much more kind of different kind of variation. And we really had it to where I think maybe a lot of these were possibly to get to be used on other shows, but instead landed onto this one. And so I had a lot of fun just also listening to the soundtrack at some points, especially when we have really just the times when both the Peacemaker character and Amelia are to have these kind of moments between them. Amelia, who is to be the girl on the right here, uh, they're kind of almost seemingly as if they're gonna have some kind of romantic thing going on with these two characters, considering how they're always having these kind of alone like moments. And so we of course have Peacemaker at some point in the show like saying like, well, I haven't been with a woman in a while, because of course he had to spend some time in jail. We easily and quickly have just Peacemaker just sneak out of a hospital, like with this guy not even being cuffed to a bed or anything like that, to eventually go on and make his way back home, finding out that at the time that he was in prison, he has to go home and find out that he doesn't have any money. Because eventually there are to be things like phone services that were consistently being paid and all kinds of things while he was out of prison. So, uh, we also end up going on and realizing that there is a weird eagle character that we end up finding out is actually the Peacemaker's sidekick, who is Eagly. A lot of people would immediately just say that, like, you have to be joking, right? No, like, this character actually is to present either some comedic relief, or is to just be this kind of character that isn't, like, hugely prominent in this show. But every once in a while, we just kind of see him pop in to do some kind of something and be involved in the show in a little bit of capacity. And like, it is kind of a fun thing, just kind of have this eagly character, this eagle, that is to be its own little fun little addition to this cast. So overall, I thought that this was like a really like goofy, funny, like kind of adult late night Adult Swim kind of a show, uh, which really immediately I wouldn't say for people like this isn't of course going to be at all like a family show. And a lot of people like, I'm sorry, the rating would not tell us that it's a family show anyways. I get that, but some people are weirdly like, they would go on and say like The Walking Dead, like, oh, that's not a family show. It never was. So like, definitely this show is to be uh not at all what is to be a, of course, family show at all. Because at one point we have the Peacemaker going and banging away with some woman that he finds, and at some bar, and we have that scene going on. So like, we're having it to where I guess John has really gone from like the train wreck scene now to him being like kind of full on at some point naked in this show. We get to see his butt. We get to see quite a bit of uh, more John, so to speak, that we were probably wanting to in the show. But hey, it's all in comedy. It's all in just showcasing something interesting for John to put on his resume, and so on and so forth. So good for him that John is willing to do these kinds of things for a show. Like, it seems to be uh, a passion project for him, so I can enjoy that. And it seems that the more and more we go into this film, the more, or into this show, I mean, the more interesting that we're getting as far as story. Yeah, we might not be getting like a like, I would still say, I out of the HBO Max superhero genre, I can still like the first season of Doom Patrol a little bit more. This kind of presents itself, like, I would say, even much more so. Like, this show feels like an Archer to me. If a lot of people have seen Archer, or if people, because that seems to be the more profound show to kind of mention here. This kind of feels like an Archer kind of type of show. But anyways, so yeah, I definitely would have to say a thumbs up for this one. Uh, Doom Patrol season one. not quite there yet, but this show I think was really good. I think this was kind of a lot more fun, and it felt better than a lot of the other Disney Plus Marvel shows that have been coming out lately. Just because it kind of goes into some weird territories, and it has some goofy things, and it is to be a much more adult approach to it, which I'm kind of happy about. Simply because we have like PUSSY shots at some point of the show, because we of course have the character Lieta, who is to be going on and needing uh, some kind of experimentation with her lover, who is also a girl, to kind of work through the fact that uh, she is to uh, try to figure out how they can go on and showcase their love between one another. So, with that said, let's just go into spoiler time because I've already talked long enough about this. So, this is a show to just have fun with. If you kind of go into these episodes and this really just isn't for you, then you can go out of way to say that you're like, oh, okay, well, like, this is too goofy for me. I'm out. Or everybody's like, okay, maybe this is something that a lot of people might have needed. Because I can't say that this feels like a Deadpool show, even though a lot of people would just say it's like that. It just doesn't quite come off that way. So, uh, this kind of comes off as more of like an Adventure Bros or an Archer or like some kind of really late night cartoon that is to be a lot more risque, but it's a live action approach to it. So let's go into that double five, because otherwise that time yet again to go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So we of course have Peacemaker, who is to wake up from his injuries, and so we have his doctor. And I'm not going to go into exact names for everybody. And it seems that also for IMDb, they don't very much list a crap ton of names, anyways. Because of course not. Why would they go on and do that? Plus, also, this show would just drop today, so there might be some scrambling going on that eventually somewhere down the road there's going to be stuff a lot more specific. So Peacemaker is to eventually make it out of his injuries with seemingly I think a metal plate or something put into his chest. And so we have Peacemaker wanting a much more cosmetically pleasing kind of metal thing being put in his chest. And they're like, well, hey, if you go on to rehab, like, this should be fine. So we end up basically replaying the whole entire, like, the Suicide Squad movie in this, like, opening of this show. So I'm like, why would you even, like, do that? Like, it's basically ruining the other thing that you already have on HBO Max, or if you don't have it, then that's a mistake. But, like, it the Suicide Squad should be on HBO Max. So, um, but yeah, like, why are they basically show the entire film in one fell swoop of a movie. And we also have a re-referencing in the first episode here, where we have Peacemaker going on and talking to his dad, Augie Smith, and making the joke about him working with Bloodsport, and Bloodsport had that that moment of him being deathly afraid of rats. And weirdly, he was working with another character in the Suicide Squad called Rat Keeper or Rat Trainer or whatever goofy name that other girl had. Because I've seen the Suicide Squad and I've seen this movie, uh, or I've seen this show. So like we're kind of continuing where we left off technically. So excuse me. So we go on here and we have Peacemaker who's waking up in the hospital, talking to this janitor about weed and stuff like that. Uh, so it seems like the Peacemaker is to walk out of this hospital, get all of his duds on, and leave this area without anybody really noticing. But we all of a sudden have a text being sent out as like he's on his way. So Peacemaker is to make it back to his trailer, and so Peacemaker is to have to go on and try to figure out how to get back into his trailer, his place, and he's going through to see if there's any extra keys by his trailer to realize there isn't any. So he ends up having to break through his now window to try to get into the place. He realizes that his phone service is still on, and so there are a number of texts being sent to him, and there's a number of voicemails that are coming from Vigilante, and we have Vigilante end up calling Peacemaker P and him V, and then he realizes the mistake. He's like, "Oh well, like you might have gotten confused there of me calling you like Wang and me Vijay. I'm trying to like censor a lot of stuff here so I don't have to get flagged for any goofy things of cuss words and whatever." So, but we go on and have Vigilante, who's a very needy guy who is to consistently send Peacemaker numerous voicemails, ridiculously numerous voicemails. So, uh, so we have Peacemaker going on, and he is to, of course, make it to his father's place, who is Augie Smith. So we have Peacemaker going on and meeting up with Augie Smith, and so like we have this exchange of these two guys, and so Peacemaker, of course, is asking about Eagly, and that if Augie has been kind of taking care of him, and is like, well, yeah, of course I've been taking care of him. So, but we also have Augie, who is to kind of open up this one kind of safe room that is to all of a sudden showcase this kind of underground Batcave-ish like area that is to have a bunch of the Peacemaker helmets, because Peacemaker had to desperately go on and give one of his helmets away so that way he could pay for cab fare. So we go on and we have Augie, who is to mention that there's a number of helmets that can do a number of different things. So I guess justifyingly, if Peacemaker is going to need a different kind of helmet for different situations, then really Peacemaker can just break in here at any time to try and get certain helmets for certain tasks. So we go on and we have Peacemaker, who is to take this Sonic Blast Peacemaker helmet, which he uses later on in this episode. So we have Peacemaker going and getting Eagly, and immediately we have this kind of warm moment where this eagle is going and hugging Peacemaker, and so Peacemaker is asking his father, it's like, well, hey, like, please, like, get my camera out. I don't want to move, so we can keep this photo of them like hugging and whatever. So, if anything, like that photo honestly should have been like a big massive poster of a thing that they should have used at some point, but heaven forbid they do that, right? So, because that was like the fun moment of like the trailers where it was like, oh, okay, I can see where this could be a really fun show. So after all three of these characters, because I say Eagly's also like eating with them, we go on and we have Peacemaker telling that story about Bloodsport being afraid of rats because he was tortured by his father. And I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that story from the Suicide Squad. And how they were going on and exchanging all these stories, and the Rat Keeper was going on and telling her story uh, about her father and how her father had and how her father died, and so that's why she became like the Rat Keeper too. So we go on and we of course have it where now Augie Smith is asking Peacemaker, it's like, well, hey, like, Bloodsport wasn't the guy that shot you, did he? And Peacemaker's like, well, like, that mission was confidential. And so Aki's just like, oh my god, like, I raised a woman kind of thing or something like that. Like, just like completely just like, oh my god, like, this is like, are you kidding me? So 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 after Peacemaker is to leave with his eagly, uh, so we eventually go on and have, of course, the Peacemaker going and, of course, having this group of people go and find him and tell him that they are to be working with them. We have the leader who is Crimson Mern, and it seems like this guy is to already have like uh, a pretty substantial kind of resume, I guess, because Peacemaker is to know about this guy. It seems like this guy doesn't really seems to like emotions don't really check with him. We have this whole part of one episode where he is to uh, Clemson is to go on and talk to um, John uh, Economus, the kind of the tech guy, and we have them going and having this like talk about how Clemson doesn't ever like reveal any kind of feelings, or kind of mentions at some point that he's never mentioned to anybody that he feels chilly or he feels angry or whatever, and but eventually he does show anger at some point. So, and they make a whole big deal out of that dialogue. So we go on and we have Clemson, who is of course saying that, hey, like, Peacemaker, you're gonna be working with us because like we tracked you because you still have that bomb in your neck. So if anything, you're gonna be working with us with Project Butterfly. And we have, of course, Peacemaker making the joke of like, well, okay, like, what's Project Butterfly? Because you guys aren't very like secretive about your names. Like, I worked on Project Starro, and it was basically just me going and finding a massive star. So, like, what is the whole butterfly thing? I don't quite get it. So we go on and we eventually have it where uh, John is to be, or uh, so Peacemaker here is to be forced to work with his group because technically they can still shave off some sentencing of course, Peacemaker's sentence. So uh, so we go on here and we eventually have it where uh, Peacemaker is to meet up with these guys at some restaurant to kind of go over things even more so. And So all of a sudden we have Peacemaker coming to this restaurant in his full on cosplay gear, and they're like, "Oh my god, he's cosplaying this?" And like, yeah, we have it to where like really just Peacemaker is like, well, just John Cena is to always come in with this outfit regardless of if it like fits the scenario or not. So we go on and have these guys talking it out, and so all of a sudden we have it to where uh, we have them talking uh, about how Peacemaker is to talk to this waitress, and how he had called her like sweet cheeks, and they're like, oh my god, that's kind of an offensive thing to go and call a woman. And it's like, is it really? So like, I thought it was a compliment. And they're like, no, it's kind of like calling a woman like sugar tits or something like that. And they're like, really, do you think that's really offensive? And so they go through and they're going on and on about this, and that seems to be the only real true legitimate takeaway from all from this talk, because really all of it is to just be kind of everybody kind of getting under everyone's skin and just kind of offending one another, and that's all that really is to be truly played out of this dialogue at this restaurant. So, or at the place that they're at. So we go on, and we eventually have it where Peacemaker is to go on and eventually share a drink with Amelia. And we, of course, have John here, who is to go on and mention that he hasn't been with a woman in a long time, simply because he's been in prison. So we have it to where Amelia is like, well, I'm not going to be that girl. Like, so we have, of course, Peacemaker and Amelia having these exchanges, and so we go on here, and we have eventually Peacemaker landing a woman eventually, and we end up finding out that this, of course, woman uh, that Peacemaker is to sleep with here is to be one of these butterfly like characters that is to be like almost like Terminator or Cyborg esque, like to where we have them kind of battling it out after Peacemaker is to go on and thumb through this person's records and be like, oh my god, like this is all of my music that I love. And he's going on and putting a thing in the record for all of a sudden this girl to attack him. And we do have quite a few wrestling moves that end up coming into these exchanges. We have at one point that the girl ends up like clotheslining Peacemaker, and it seems like this woman is to be very animalistic about her attacks. But before all this, we end up having them like banging in a bathroom for whatever reason. I guess to have like this kind of mirror effect. So, but we go on, and so eventually what happens is now Peacemaker is to scramble to get to his car to get to his helmet. Mind you, this guy is running around in just his underwear because, like, that's what he had on him when he was, like, in that room. And so he runs off to go into his car to get his helmet to have his Sonic Blast Peacemaker helmet be used here to go and take out this I'm assuming butterfly girl. Uh, like we really don't quite understand why exactly this is just seemingly like we don't really understand until really the third episode why they call them butterfly people, and then they're like, oh, I get it. It kind of feels like a Starro kind of situation, where if anybody is to realize what Starro was, we have, of course, this starfish that latches onto somebody's head, and it kind of feels like the butterfly is to be kind of the same kind of thing. Especially once we get to the third episode, we start to understand that a little bit more. So, uh, so we go on and we have uh, John, or we have, God, I just want to keep calling him John Cena. We have Peacemaker going on and trying to leave this area, and we have two police officers, uh, Fitzgibbon and Sophie Song, who are to go and try to uh, take down Peacemaker and arrest him because he's in this environment. But he starts scrambling around with this blanket full of like records and CDs and all kinds of stuff. Maybe he collected a bunch of DVDs. I don't know. Maybe we could have found some like DVD collection of one of John Cena's other movies, but that never happened. But that would have been funny, right? As a little Easter egg thing. So, but I guess more than likely they would have had to have found a Warner Brothers John Cena movie, which not quite sure if they would have found that. So we have John who is to go through, and he is jumping from balcony to balcony of this apartment complex, and I'm just like, oh my god. Like, so we're having this guy who is consistently like smacking his shoulder to just kind of fall into this place, and I'm like, man, how many times is he gonna fall on his like shoulder? Because it's supposedly to be like his shoulder is to be kind of injured here. I think he kind of broke his collarbone or whatever. So, because we have it to where like the Peacemaker is to basically like fall on his one arm when he goes into his window, and so now he's going from these uh, balconies, jumping from balcony to balcony with all these records and chucking these records. Where I'm like, what condition are these records going to be in by the time that he reaches the end of this? So we have a bunch of people just kind of watching on. So all of a sudden Peacemaker is to make it into one of these apartments where he's hiding out, telling one guy that, hey man, kind of just like these cops are kind of coming, so you should go on and uh, try and uh, kind of keep it cool. So we have Peacemaker and we have this kind of couple fighting, which we rarely have the woman that was with this couple. We end up finding the woman later on in the bed with both Vigilante and Peacemaker, just kind of sharing a cigarette. I'm like, okay, like, so did they have a threesome? What happened here? That kind of just felt like a random moment, but it seems like there's certain characters where they're just kind of using randomly at some points. And plus, also, how can you complain about a topless woman? So, anywhere in this show, or bottomless woman, because we end up having supposedly Kelia, or Kelia, who of course is to be uh, uh, Le, uh, Leota's girlfriend, who of course is to give us a little flash of something. So, and I think by this time now we're almost in like episode 2. I think is what is to like kind of transpire at the end of this. So Peacemaker is to eventually escape out of this apartment complex, and we consistently have it weirdly that both Larry and Sophie, who are to be those two detectives, are to think that Augie Smith is to possibly be the culprit because he is to have his car in the parking lot. They immediately think that this guy is to be the Peacemaker guy, and they end up going on and sending him to jail, and everybody's to call him the White Dragon. We have a bunch of these guys who are going on and like hailing him, and they call him the White Dragon. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting to kind of see if there's going to be a possible backstory of this character, or just kind of really understand why they're calling him White Dragon for whatever freaking reason. But anyways, so kind of quickly getting that out of the way. So we go on into this story, and the next kind of bit of stuff here after Peacemaker is to make his way through that whole ordeal of him going after this butterfly girl, and the detectives going and finding someone's face on the ground somewhere. So we go on and have it where I think the second episode is mostly to deal with both the Peacemaker and Vigilante kind of hanging out. It seems like we had Vigilante, I guess, at some point in that restaurant, but like kind of working in that restaurant, but we never really could really understand if that was Vigilante or not. But I guess now we seemingly know. So when Peacemaker is to meet up with Vigilante here, we of course have him waking up with Vigilante being of course, uh, at this window, and we have Peacemaker consistently having this joke about like, "Hey man, like, don't show me your junk, like, don't whip it out on me." And Vigilante's like, "Why would I do that?" And Peacemaker is like, because I know if I'm going to turn around, all of a sudden you're going to be flashing your junk to me." Because there was to be this one comedian who was called Louis C.K. who made this whole joke about him whipping his junk out at people, and like, "Hey man, you better not be whipping out your junk at me when I turn and look at you." And so like this is going on and on about the whole flashing of junk thing. And so Vigilante's like, "Man, just freaking look, like I don't have my junk whipped out, like look." And so we have it to where Peacemaker looks, and like his junk is not whipped out. Like we basically have the area shown where he is not whip out his junk. And so he's like, oh, "Okay, come on in." So we go on and we have Vigilante who's kind of asking uh like Peacemaker like all these questions about like what had happened to him and so on and so. You would have thought, like, considering what Peacemaker did had like really made the news, you would have thought he would have been asking him possibly about any of the events of the Suicide Squad. So but anyways, we go on and we have the Vigilante who is to want to team up with the Peacemaker, and also he's like thumbing through his collection of stuff that he's had, asking where it goes. So we go on and we of course are to uh, transition to have Peacemaker of course needs something to do here. So we go on in this second episode and we of course have uh or in the I think the oh no wait, there's more with the Vigilante. So we go on and we have both the Peacemaker and Vigilante going on and going into this kind of random junkyard of a place, and they're just kind of firing off rounds, listening to some pop song that is kind of turned punk, so to speak. And they're just kind of firing off rounds here, having fun, so on and so forth. So we have kind of after this that we eventually have again kind of Peacemaker being prepped for this mission, still desperately wanting to know what the heck the butterfly thing means. So we go on here and we of course have it where uh, Peacemaker is to get briefed about this next mission, which he is to also have a gun that he is supposed to use for this mission that doesn't have a Peacemaker logo on it, which is to be the bird. So they give him a Sharpie and force him to now have to draw this logo on this gun, and he's like, "Oh my god, I can't draw this logo perfectly. It just looks like a ghost." So we of course end up having Peacemaker here uh, making this gun his own, weirdly, bizarrely. So we go on here, and I'm trying to think if there's anything that I kind of hugely missed here, because I think there's so much going on in the show that I feel like there's like opportunities that I'm missing somewhere. Um, let me pause here for 1 second. All right. I think the only thing that I had forgotten about was like, because I mentioned between the Peacemaker and the one girl, there was more going on than just like wrestling moves and clotheslines and whatever. There was like a knife that comes into play, and she ends up stabbing Peacemaker in the chest. And eventually, in the second episode, we have it to where, of course, Peacemaker is kind of getting sewn up, and we of course have it to where uh, Peacemaker is kind of briefing them about what had all happened, as we ended up having the Peacemaker going and scrambling to get to uh, both Amelia and uh, Leota's like car, and that's how he is to leave, and is to have his dad's car still left uh, at this apartment complex, because technically the car is still in Augie's name, because Clemson is talking to John and the tech guy, the kind of the tech guy with the glasses we see here, and they are to weirdly have this car being put in Peacemaker's dad's name, because I guess that was the convenient way of just kind of hiding this whole thing. So we also are to find out that Leota is to actually be Amanda Waller's daughter, and immediately once I saw this video, I'm like, okay, she has to probably be her daughter, because this is the thing that really makes sense here. We have her kind of coming in, and she's to go on and say this really long-winded speech, and then she's realizing that she's just kind of rattling on, rambling, and so she kind of stops talking, but then she keeps going on, and she's like, well, uh, like, and yeah, I'm gonna just stop talking. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna happen right now. It's gonna happen. So she just goes on and continues to keep talking, like thanking everybody for being a part of this mission and so on and so forth. But really, she's only here because she's technically Amanda Waller's daughter. But we're gonna find out later, like, that there's probably gonna be a real benefit to having this character on this team. So it's not like she is to basically only be on this team. I'm sure there's going to be something we're going to find out later, just like, ooh, interesting. So, all right, hope so. So we go on here, and so we have. I think that covers most of the first two episodes. So let's get into the third one. So we go on and we have Peacemaker, who's gone to this mission, and he is to be going after some senator who is to be a butterfly guy. So we now have it where Peacemaker is to make it to this guy's house and is supposed to take this guy out, probably with a number of people also in this home. So we have Vigilante that is kind of in the shadows, kind of just poking his head, like, oh, hey, hi. Like, hey, guys, you found me, hey. So we end up, of course, going on and having Vigilante just consistently like lurking in the shadows. So eventually he is to be forcibly involved in the mission that Peacemaker is in, just because he keeps showing up. So, because we end up finding out that Vigilante is to be a guy who is to just kind of kill anybody, and because you would think for him just kind of doing anything that he would just be this psycho, but we have it to where also Peacemaker is to say that he is to kill anybody to keep the peace, and we are going to have it to where in this episode, in the third episode, that is going to be uh, really just determined. So we, of course, go on and have Leota, who's to do this slideshow, these photos, showcasing the senator's family. And so we, of course, have Peacemaker going on and saying, like, oh, well, like, one of his kids is a butt kid, where obviously there's certain kids that have, like, natural births, and there's this other girl who's to be this kind of, like, more piglet looking kid. Like, I don't want to sound offensive, but like she has like a pig nose and whatever, and evidently she's a butt kid. So, so we go on here, and we eventually have Leota, uh, or yeah, we have her going and showing a pic of, I guess, some girls' nethers, and so we have, of course, Peacemaker kind of laughing about that and like creating a whole big massive joke about that, and we have Leota who's saying like, "Well, hey, like, it's like my bad, like that just like was on my album of photos, and there was nothing I could do to change it." And so like, okay, like that's fine, because we have it to where this girl's experimenting with her partner, because really we had Amelia that was telling Leota that her like partner shouldn't be on this mission with her. So because we had this girl who like basically brought her dogs with her, brought her girlfriend with her, and the funny thing is we end up having this couple going on and trying to come up with names for their kid. I guess if it's a boy, they're going to call him Sharknado, and if it's a girl, they're going to call him. They're going to call her. Um, God, what was it? Octopussy. You would have thought they would have gone with some other name, some other kind of James Bond like thing, but I don't know. I guess they just went with that one. So, so I think that's a James Bond reference, right? You would think. So, going on into this, I was trying to save this video from cuss words, but more likely it's going to happen anyways. So, F it, right? Censor myself even more. What a waste. Anyways, so we go on and we have Peacemaker making his way to this senator's place, and we of course have him being guarded by a guy in this green suit who is to be a character called Judo Master. We also have in these episodes we have some Easter eggs. We have John going on, the tech guy, who is to mention Batmite. I'm like, oh my god, they mentioned Batmite in this thing. I'm like, oh my god, because Batmite, if people don't know, Batmite is a character that would show up in like kind of random Batman cartoons. Like there's a Brave and Bold episode that had Batman and Batmite on it, so you can kind of see that. Where of course you have like Batmite, who's kind of like this, like a little character that kind of is to be on the shoulder of Batman at some point in some episode. And we have this character that seems to be like a an uber powered character that can kind of do anything. And I was desperately hoping at some point that on some show somewhere they would go with Batmite. I'm like, you would think if Batwoman is just kind of suffering in ratings or stuff like that, they would have Batmite just kind of come in and wipe the slate clean and just go on and just like start anew. Like that's how they can go on and write the fact that like Batwoman was a completely different Batwoman, because you can just kind of bring in this Batmite character and that would make a lot of sense to just kind of put in a reset button for whatever reason. But yeah, so like when they said Batmite, I was like, oh my god, they're referencing stuff, cool, goofy stuff, but goofy stuff nonetheless. Uh, like I was kind of hoping that they would kind of just have a lot of fun with the season, and they wouldn't go on to like actually have a one kind of villain of a thing. Like I was hoping that they would just kind of have fun with it and have these kind of cool vigilante adventures, but I guess they just had this one goal of a story, but they're kind of doing goofy things like in between. So but yeah, so we go on and we have Peacemaker making it to this this spot here, and so we all of a sudden have Judo Master, who is to, I guess, have this ability to transfer his energy, because when Judo Master is to be in combat, he is to shout out this thing, and Clemson is to realize exactly what it is. And so Judo Master is going on and starting to fight all these guys, because we, of course, have it to where Vigilante had gone on and shot most of the senator's family, with the exclusion of actually killing the senator, as all of his family was going on and consuming this, I think, honey from these bowls, and they're like, yeah, that ain't human. So we go on and have these really long, stretched out, like, tongue of a things that these butterfly people are to use. And so John is just supposed to take the shot here, but he just can't for whatever reason. And so Vigilante comes in and starts shooting all of these people, and leaves the senator for last. But then all of a sudden, Judo Master comes in and starts kind of taking everybody out. So we go on, and eventually we have it to where John, at some point, is to the tech guy is to take out Judo Master, while Judo Master is in this car trying to get back to this place, because Judo Master had gone on to take these people and take them into the house with the senator for them to go on and be tortured for information. But we have kind of the Red Notice approach of torturing. If anybody has seen the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Ryan Reynolds movie, where we, of course, have in that film, if you haven't seen it, spoilers for a very, very brief part of that movie, where we end up having it, instead of Ryan Reynolds getting tortured for information, we have it to where Dwayne is getting tortured for information, and Ryan Reynolds is actually to know like the the thing that he should be tortured with, but instead Dwayne's getting tortured because it's like, oh, like feel the pain of this. So Ryan is like, no, like I don't feel anything. So like just keep going on and torturing him. So we of course, instead of having Peacemaker being tortured for information, Vigilante is getting tortured for information. Where all of a sudden he's being electrified via his balls, and so once that doesn't work, and Peacemaker is telling Vigilante, it's like, yeah, he's gonna get nothing from me. And Vigilante's like, well, could you just give him something? As Vigilante at some point is going to lose his toes at some point, and Peacemaker is telling him, like, yeah, take all of his toes, I still won't tell you anything. And Peacemaker and Vigilante's like, oh my god, he's gonna take all my toes. So uh so we go on here, and eventually the agents are to uh, figure out where exactly they are keeping these guys, both Vigilante and Peacemaker. And so the agents are going on and placing this bomb to slap on in front of this door, because Leota is to find the secret passage thing to open up this secret room, or the secret door. So we have Clemson, who is to think that the explosives that they are to slap on this door isn't working, but then all of a sudden, once he gets closer to the explosives go off, and he freaking he freaking gets tossed quite a few feet. So they go on, and they're trying to eventually go and help. Of course, both. Vigilante and Peacemaker here, all while still John had gone on and had to go and uh, like crash his van into Judo Master's car, and then have to take him out with certain kind of like I think like a crowbar or something. So we go on and eventually have it to where we have our group here go and take out the senator, and we end up finding out of this senator's face that all of a sudden this butterfly is to come out of it, and they're like, oh, so now we technically get what the butterfly means, because like these people have butterflies in their head. We also had the one moment where Peacemaker was going through this girl's the one girl that he was sleeping with stuff after he was to collect all of her records. He also went on and saw some weird device that had all these weird kind of lit blue kind of symbols on it. And so at one point when he's going on and tossing it back with this one girl and Vigilante in this bed, we have Peacemaker going on and kind of touching this one piece on this thing to find out that it's a mini ship. It's like, oh, okay. So, and eventually Peacemaker is to tell the group of the thing of which that he was to have. And so they're like, oh, okay. So we go on and we have Peacemaker going and killing this butterfly to now understand what this whole butterfly thing means. But still, like, we are kind of unsure about the whole power set of things. And so right now it's just kind of like we're still a little bit unsure about things. But other than that, I think I am going to possibly call this one a wrap. Because I think I've covered, or I think I've almost covered almost everything with this one. We again had a moment between Peacemaker and Amelia where Peacemaker was going on and trying to like think for see if there was a clear shot, which there seemingly wasn't one. And Clemens is demanding that Peacemaker is to go and shoot this family. So we go on and we have both Amelia and Peacemaker going and having this kind of stretch of dialogue here where uh, where Amelia is to kind of give us a little bit of backstory of her character and have us like understand her a little bit more. And so like yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to say about this one, about this show so far. Hopefully I kind of covered everything. Like I went into a lot of vague like stuff, but there's also some stuff where I actually went into dialogue about, not kind of patting myself in the back, but just saying like, hey, it's a mixed bag of stuff that I can remember and not remember because it's all in 3 episodes of me covering all this. So I am going to get out of here. If something comes into my brain, more than likely the next time that I do this, there may just be a rebuttal, or really I'll just be fine with what all I was talking about here. I'm sure there's probably going to be something I'm going to forget and just feel bad about it, but oh well, it is what it is. So I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.